Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Soghomon Tehlirian Prison Diaries series. I'm Michael, and this is a Sovereign Artsakh channel. And for those of you who know who Soghomon Tehlirian is, I have a special treat for you today. Soghomon loved poetry. I love poetry. When I discovered his love for poetry, I felt like I am definitely his adopted grandson. But his family has insisted that he wrote poetry as well. And so in my world travels, one of the things we were pursuing is we were trying to track down the original handwritten manuscript that he wrote for his memoir, because we suspected there could possibly have been some of his original poetry included with those manuscripts. That journey, that treasure hunt is still underway. In other words, we haven't found it yet. But once we discovered his prison diary, lo and behold, there are 2 poems included. And I'm going to read one of those poems today. Now, keep in mind, poetry it's special in the language it's written. And when you translate it, so much of the artistry is lost. However, the meaning conveyed in any language, there's still value in it because there's meaning that can be translated. But sometimes there's poetic devices like alliteration or assonance, that's and rhyming, and the use of the uses of the sounds that flow in poetry do not translate, but the meaning can translate. So this is written. It's 3 sections. Section 1, Section 2, Section 3, several stanzas, and it is titled 2A. So one thing about Soghomon's diary is that he, generally you're going to write in a diary, you're going to be, ideally you're going to be as vulnerable and transparent and get everything that's really inside of you out, not assuming somebody's going to read it, even though in the back of your mind, you always know there's this potential that somebody could sneak it and read it. Or if you became super famous for something, that it would be published someday and lots of people would read it. So similarly, Soghomon's in prison. This sheets of paper that he's given, he has no freedom and no rights. So he doesn't have privacy. So he writes in his prison diary, self-editing. And in a future episode, I'll point out how he actually mentions within the body of his diary his own self-editing. And so he never mentions anywhere in his prison diary the girl that he fell in love with and the girl that he ultimately would end up marrying. Like, he fell in love with Artsakh prior to even going to war. And then he's sitting basically on death row, or he's about to face a trial where he could be sentenced to death. And so here he is writing a couple of weeks prior to the trial. It was all a big question mark, and so that's where he is. He's fallen in love with this girl, yet he sacrificed that relationship to go do something very important. And now he's reflecting back on the times that he had with her. Their relationship was pure. They hadn't messed around yet. They hadn't, there was no opportunity for that. She was several years younger than him, and when he left, that was in the company of her family. And so this is pure emotion from purity, right? This is not any kind of salacious poetry that you see in some of the music that we have today. So 2A, Section 1. You were proud as a goddess of our ancestors' temple. You disrespected the memory of the old days that were to return again. Life for you and you for life. The laughter blossoming upon your face, a laughter perceived solely by my eyes, troubled my heart and soul alike. Yet one day the idol you had built, the object of your vain love, as though an empty dream, was shattered all at once. Beneath the shards of your idol, I came to bury, as a gift dedicated to the memory of the day, the broken cup of my love. As I laid my cup to rest, you approached me with a perturbed face, in order to prevent, with your red hands, the burial of my hopes' shreds. Yet isn't it true that those red hands of yours are painted with the wine of love. Section 2. Do you remember one morning while sitting in the garden, daydreaming under the tree, you saw me next to you, holding the cup of my vow? And you cruelly struck my cup, spilling my love's wine, in which was mixed for you the silent love of a tormented heart. Oh, you did not want to spare even my cup, which for so many long days was kept tenderly within my chest, as though it were my very soul. I know you wished to make a feast with those painted hands of yours, but then the sounds of sobbing reached you from the black earth. Those sobs carried my love's curse, which you mixed into the black earth, together with the wine, partaking in the curse of my soul, the curse of my heart. Section 3. One day, disenchanted by your dream, you returned to that same tree, but autumn had plucked off the leaves of the towering tree and left its branches bare. Meanwhile, from the spilled wine of the past, there was a flower that had sprouted through the irrigated black earth. Yet already it had wilted, no longer able to entice. You wished to give life again to the flower of my wilted love, but your blemished touch caused the flower to break and fall to the ground. I know you cried for that flower's death, but haven't I been crying for a long time? Now cry again, as forever are gone the irretrievable days of your dreams. I know that was a rough reading. That's actually the first time I've read it straight through aloud, but you can feel it. You can feel the passion. So this will obviously be a part of the production that I do. You know, I'll have him sitting down writing these words and speaking them, and then you'll have a flashback or techniques you do in film where you can show her where she is while he's in prison writing these words and thinking them in his mind, and it'll be an emotional moment, cinematic moment. But this is real, like this is true, and the way he describes his feelings for her in the memoir, and how they met, and how he was so trepidatious, and how he couldn't believe how he'd been struck by this emotion so surprisingly for this beautiful young Armenian princess. So there you have it. So tomorrow, or in the next episode, whenever that is, I'm going to read the other poem that he wrote. And it is about as diametrically opposed to this one as possible. He wrote 2 poems in his prison diary, and they're to the 2 most important people in his life at that time. This one, obviously, was to Anahit, and the other one is to Talat.